Somebody telling you that they're a narcissist actually doesn't help it go away or make it better, because you're still enduring the gaslighting, the invalidation, the negating, the lying, whatever it is that their sort of narcissistic game is.
I'm gonna put a situation to you and want you to reflect on whether this has ever happened to you. So what about when the narcissistic person is horrible to other people, but they're still really nice to you? It's a unique dynamic that some of you may be thinking, well, I'd love that for a change. You actually may not love that once you hear more about it. So this is an interesting dynamic. The narcissistic person liking you, still being nice to you and being really awful to other people. But it's an interesting dynamic that might happen in families, probably more than intimate relationships, but frankly, it can happen in any narcissistic relationships. So let's break down how it may look in a variety of relationships. The first may be that you are in a new relationship. They are treating you like it's a fairy tale. They are successful at what they do and they oversee a large team at work. You overhear them talking on a Zoom call to their team, and they are just awful, humiliating, contemptuous, and dismissive. And then a few weeks later, when you're going on a weekend away and you check into a hotel with them, the room they wanted is not available, and they lose it. They demand to see the manager. You want to sink into the ground. The manager comes out, tries to calm everything down, and gives the room that your person you're traveling with, the narcissist, wants. And once you guys get up to the room, the narcissistic person sweeps you up in their arms and shows you the fabulous room and says, "Only the best for my baby." Second scenario, your parent is narcissistic, and they are big on a whole family first and family sticks together, and we're a big family party line nonsense. You watch them as a child be terrible to other people, restaurant servers, the guy who would cut the lawn, even to some of your extended family, but then they'd playfully ruffle your hair and say, "How's my kid doing?" These patterns will persist into adulthood. And when you called it out to them, like said, how can you treat this person that way? They would be dismissive and say something like, they're nobody. What's your problem? What are you, choosing some flunky over me? Here's a third scenario. Your boss is narcissistic. And when you got the job, you were thrilled. This person is a visionary, the best at what they do. And this was not an easy position or easy job to get. You wanted to learn from this boss, and they recruited you heavily into the job. You were in a meeting with the larger team, and this happened pretty regularly. And in this particular meeting, some of the goals for the quarter were not met, and this boss became enraged, screaming so loudly and so cruelly that some of the more junior team members cried. The boss even pushed a chair across the room and threw a tablet to the ground with such force that it broke. Everybody in that team knows that you're one of their key mentees. You felt gross sitting there up in the front of the room. You go to happy hour with these folks that were being screamed at. And after this meeting was done, you go back to your office, and then the boss calls you into their office, where they then start complimenting you on the report that you put on their desk saying, "Oh, thank goodness I have at least one competent person on this team. You're going to end up being the savior of this place." So when you hear scenarios like this, and I'm sure you have some of your own, some of you, let's talk about some cognitive dissonance. When you're being love-bombed and treated really well by a narcissistic person, it can feel great. And then when you observe their awfulness, but they aren't being awful to you, there's a sense of well, aren't they supposed to be devaluing me too? So then you might find yourself justifying and saying, well, maybe the hotel guy should have been more organized and know that he's got the VIP benefits at the hotel. But it can feel really unsettling when the bad behavior and the entitled tantrum to get the better hotel room works. And they view it as some kind of prize they're offering you. That's where cognitive dissonance starts playing Twister in your mind. For children, it's even more difficult. Even when parents are awful and abusive, children need attachment. to survive and to be safe, and they will love a parent despite some awful behavior. An empathic child may struggle more with this, feeling a sense of shame or sadness for the hurt and insulted people in the parent's wake. And as they get older, may feel even more embarrassed, perhaps even wanting to apologize for the abusive parent. And then sometimes feeling guilty when their parent is nice to them. A kid who may not have that same empathy, like a less empathic kid, may go a different direction and learn from observation and watching the parent's abusive behavior, how the parent mistreats other people, may end up becoming the playbook that guides their own behavior. And then if we go to that work example, that also raises some issues related to triangulation. You are treated well, others are treated badly. The mean boss is in essence telling you that you are the golden child, basically, at work. And you may actually like your colleagues, but this isn't a family. And there may be some real suspicion and distancing from you for being the chosen one by a toxic, harmful boss. Your colleagues may just say, yeah, we don't want anything to do with this person. It's almost a little easier when the narcissistic person treats you as badly as they treat everyone else. We have talked at length about the dynamic of the narcissistic person treating you badly and other people well, leaving you with little support and everyone else thinking that the narcissistic person is great and wondering what is wrong with you for not thinking that they're great. But this sort of different kind of dynamic, while not nearly as common, it's very real. Many people in these situations may experience a sense of what's called moral injury, a feeling as though they have done something bad, even though it is the narcissistic person behaving badly. But it becomes a sort of guilt by association thing. But because the narcissistic person is behaving badly and then turning around and treating you well, it's very common to feel as though you are the one who is partially responsible for the hurt that they caused other people. That by being treated well by the narcissistic person, that you're somehow complicit. And that sense of moral injury over time can take a massive toll on your mental health and take any narcissistic abuse and also make it worse. The frameworks for understanding this and the actions to take may vary on the basis of the relationship. If you, for example, are still in the love bombing stage or in the early part of a narcissistic relationship, I promise you it's a matter of time before their rage turns on you. In a family relationship, there may be the uncomfortable recognition that you have been careful with the narcissistic parent or family member because you know what their rage looks like. And you fall into line with them to avoid it. You may even feel like an enabler in that situation. In the workplace, it's the same thing. It's the weighing out of the opportunity, the discomfort of being allied with someone who can treat your colleagues so badly. There also has to be the recognition that it will be you before too long, but there may also be opportunities there. When the narcissistic person rages at and abuses other people and not you, they are showing you the breadth of their behavioral repertoire. And it's only a matter of time before what you do lands you afoul of them, and you're probably going to have to face their rage. Many survivors of narcissistic abuse have said that there were so many things to heal from. And one of the most pointed was the shame of being associated with a person who treated other people so badly. Radical acceptance means recognizing that they may be treating you well, but they are simultaneously a tyrant. And for lots of folks, the confusion between the niceness and the related behaviors such as the generosity or the largesse of the narcissistic person against the context of their terrible treatment of other people results in terrible cognitive dissonance. And then you throw into that the shame of being associated with the narcissistic person. And all of this, although it's not the narcissistic person being mean to you, this almost becomes an equally intense, maybe even worse pattern to have to heal from. If the narcissistic person is nice to you and mean to other people, it doesn't make you responsible for their behavior. You didn't yell at those people. And maintaining a relationship with the narcissistic person doesn't make you complicit. But it will, over time, make you uncomfortable. It will be difficult to reconcile their good treatment of you with what they are capable of with others. But let radical acceptance be your teacher and also make you curious about your own behavior with the narcissist. Do you hold back out of fear of their rage? Do you make justifications about them to other people? Be very careful about doing this because it can be deeply invalidating to other people who are harmed by the narcissist. If you are in this situation, acknowledge that people are being harmed by them and don't try to bring in context because abuse in any form is not permissible. And then there is the uncomfortable realization that you may be viewed as an enabler, or that even though your association, like I said, doesn't make you responsible for the narcissistic person's behavior, and it doesn't make you complicit, other people are in fact being harmed by the narcissistic person, and those other people may not be so circumspect, and they may very well, these other people may take the stance that you're like the narcissistic person, or may even be partly responsible. And this can bring up tremendous grief, guilt, and other complex emotions. There can sometimes be this strange sense of incredible family loyalty when you have narcissistic matriarchs and patriarchs involved, that they will treat people that are maybe around the family terribly, but have a loyal stick-together narrative with a tight inner core that they deploy. So they may have their family around them and humiliate a server at the family reunion, and then go right back to the cheerful family banter. It can be quite chilling to watch that flip-flop. The empathic family members will be very uncomfortable. The ones that are a chip off the old block may emulate it. Loyalty can really lurk in very weird places with narcissistic folks who will often, again, be terrible to everyone, but strangely loyal to their families. This is a unique dynamic. It's not a common one, but it's a very uncomfortable one. It can make healing more complex because of this moral injury piece that we can see here. Some people may understand it and cut you slack, while others, though, may not. It may also be a matter of time before you are on the receiving side of their rage, but you may be more prepared for it in this kind of situation because you are familiar with their behavioral repertoire. That said, I don't care how prepared you are. When they hit you with the rage that they have typically shown to other people, it still stings, but it may allay some of the moral injury. Ultimately, most narcissistic folks will show you their dark side if you stick around long enough. So if you witness their mistreatment of other people, hold onto your hat and gird yourself. It may not be today, it may not be tomorrow, but the first time that they perceive that you let them down, your favored child status may evaporate. So again, it's this idea that they treat you well, they mistreat everyone else, they think that you're the best and parade you around as such, and you know what they're capable of. That disconnect, if you're a decent human being, is a lot to take in. And when it does happen, not only does it raise incredible cognitive dissonance, it can also raise this idea of moral injury, this sense of guilt about how other people are suffering, and it may also make healing even more difficult, even though it's not you being mistreated, but ultimately, give it time, and enough time, they will turn their wrath on you. One of the questions that's come up is, why is my narcissistic ex so determined to stay friends with me? If you have thoughts about that, you can certainly drop them in the comment section. But why? Why would a narcissistic ex want to stay friends? Well, there's a lot of reasons for that. Number one is the ongoing need for supply. I always argue that for narcissistic people, their inner worlds are a little bit like, one of those big pantries you'd stock up like from like Costco or like a warehouse store. Always have plenty of toilet paper. They always want to have lots of supply. And so they just stack that supply up. And that means keeping exes around. Lots of, people they flirt with online. They need constant supply. So wanting to be friends with you kind of keeps you in position for when they might need more supply. It also sets them up for a Hoover, and it allows them to kind of monitor your life. Narcissistic relationships are really often characterized by a lot of control. So you staying a friend of theirs in a way kind of keeps them in the know and can kind of play on that sort of ongoing need for control they seem to have in all relationships. So it keeps you at arm's reach. The second thing is narcissistic people just love to seem like really cool, evolved people to the world. And when you can say, my ex and I are friends, it seems super evolved, right? And so there's this chance for them to say, look how together I am. We're friends. Nothing terrible happened here. Nothing to see here, folks. And if that wasn't your experience, you might even feel that pressure like, well, I don't want to seem like the person who's like being difficult and putting a line in the sand, even though you may no longer feel psychologically safe around this person. But that's often for them, it's optics. It's the, again, they're not often going to register the level of hurt they might have created for you. Your pain, your experience, they didn't register it while they were in their relationship with you. There's no reason they'd register it at the time of a breakup. But they do know what good looks good to the world. And we tend to think people who are still friends with their exes are very, very evolved. And so that might be a chance for them to do that sort of social posturing to say, look, I've got it all figured out. We're friends. It's all cool. Number 3, and this sort of relates to number 1, is they're keeping you on ice. Right? It's a lot easier to Hoover someone when you know where they are. And so there might be still some things that they want to sort of, they like about you, or they may have they might be planning on moving quickly into a new relationship, but they like to have options. It's tactical, it's strategic. And by keeping you as a friend, they've got you in position if they decide to sort of bring you up the chain back into a hoovered relationship position, or they even have you as that person to reach out to, which takes us to number 4 is narcissistic people are trollers. They drop lots of lines in the water when they're fishing. And so maybe it's an entire net, frankly. And by keeping you as a friend, you still become that place they can turn to when they're having that dark night of the soul on a Saturday night and want someone to reach out to. And if you're friends, well, obviously then they can do that. And the soothing words that they think that you might offer would be a reason to sort of keep you around. But ultimately, when it comes down to why would a narcissistic ex want to be friends, it is often a combination of optics, supply, and kind of keeping you on ice. And people might say, oh, come on, that is so cynical, Dr. Ramani. Is it really that? Listen, you weren't cherished, cared for, or valued while you were in the relationship. Why would you be cherished, valued, or cared for as a friend? And those dynamics matter in friendships. So really, really think about what you think you're signing up for. Because the things that happen while you're in an intimate relationship, you might get a lighter version of them in a friendship. But this is someone you likely grew not to trust, felt psychologically unsafe around, felt uncomfortable around. Is this a friendship you want? Now, the one place that this could get a little bit tricky is when you're co-parenting. So your narcissistic ex, it might have been a terrible end to the relationship, but whatever it is, they may then be dangling that let's be friends. In that particular case, it may not be a real friendship, but if they're trying to be that kind of benevolent, the reason to sort of maybe engage in that a little is to create some sense of civility around your children. It may not be a real friendship, but a lot of what they're doing might be for show. Another reason that narcissistic person may be reaching back in and wanting to be your friend is they've already kind of tidied up their life. They may be fully in a new relationship, fully in a new life, and in a way they get the kind of bragging rights of, look at us, we're so happy, look at me, I'm in this cool blended family kind of thing. So there's a way that they've got their life set where they want it, so then they've got space for you. Would they want to do this if, for example, you met someone and moved on? Probably not. So it tends to be a pretty self-serving maneuver. And in terms of making a decision on whether or not this works for you, it's very, very personal. But you got to take that radical acceptance and extend it to this friendship. Everything they were willing to do to you in the intimate relationship, they can do some version of that in a friendship. From there, it's on you on how you proceed. But keeping them as a friend doesn't mean they're going to result in any kind of change in them, just like it didn't when you were in an intimate relationship. Again, it's a personal choice, but let radical acceptance sort of guide your thinking on this.
So, what do you do? when a narcissist apologizes. Because it can be actually kind of confusing, right? Our narcissistic friends don't really apologize that much. So, when I ask you, what do you do with a narcissist apology? This isn't a riddle, and there isn't a punchline, though I do have a few thoughts about what to do with a narcissist apology that would require obscene language, and I don't want to go there. So let's start simple. Given that they don't like to take responsibility for anything, why do they ever apologize? Because right now, drop it in the comments. How many of you have had a narcissist say, I'm sorry to you? I bet it's a lot of you. It would seem that they wouldn't apologize, right? Especially since they do not take responsibility for their behavior. And by definition, an apology is taking responsibility, right? Not really. An apology done correctly is taking responsibility. Addressing the other person's feelings, striving for reconciliation, and committing to learning from it, that's an apology. Unfortunately, that's not what a narcissistic apology is. A narcissistic apology is a way of sort of keeping the trains running on time, of getting off the hook for something, of getting back to the way they want things to be. It's just a way of like, let's just dust that away so we can keep going. So let's take a look at the anatomy of a narcissistic apology. First of all, you're going to notice in their apology, they do not take responsibility for what they did. So here are some common apology statements that narcissists will give you. They'll say, I'm sorry you feel that way. Or, I'm sorry that you think that. Or they might say, I'm sorry it didn't go the way you want. I am sorry you feel hurt. All are very common narcissistic apologies. And in all of these apologies, what you see is that they are not apologizing for something they did or something they said. They are, in essence, though, using the apology as a way of gaslighting you and invalidating your experience. Hey, I'm sorry you feel that way. Kind of meaning that you probably shouldn't. Now, let's look at the anatomy of a healthy apology. A healthy apology might look something like this. I'm really sorry for what I said. I can see that you're hurt, and I am so sorry that my words hurt you. Or you could try, I'm so sorry for what I did to you. I didn't tell the truth, and that's not okay. I'll strive to do better. A healthy responsibility takes, a healthy apology takes responsibility, acknowledges the feelings of the other person, and commits to change. Responsibility, acknowledgement, and commitment. As you see in the narcissistic apologies, there's almost never any real responsibility taken. Instead, they pathologize the hurt party or the harmed party for their feelings or for taking issue with what the narcissist did. And if you haven't heard it yet, just a reminder, narcissists don't really change. So the other mistake that people can make once a narcissist apologizes to them is that they may now believe, great, they apologized. Well, now they get it. See, they see what they did wrong, so they won't do it again. Not true. Many, many times, a narcissist, when they actually do apologize, it can be a byproduct of a fight that you had with them, where they were, in fact, in the wrong. I can't believe you did this and won't say sorry, and then you're really angry at them, okay? Well, it's a bit of a headache for them if you're angry. They may go through their whole narcissistic rage, but once you get angry, you may actually stop giving them supply. So they may apologize to make things go back to how they want things to be. But the idea that their apology means that they understand what they did and that they're going to change their behavior, it isn't true. And if you hold that belief, it's likely that you're going to be very disappointed. When healthy people apologize, they tend to not make the same mistake again and again and again, or do the same bad behavior again. It's not that way with narcissists. They apologize so they can have their lives back the way they want them. They don't care that they hurt someone else, so they just do it again. Now, we see this on a public scale all the time. The celebrity or the tyrannical CEO or the tyrannical politician, they do a bad thing because that's what they do. They do bad things. Now, obviously, they're not writing their own apologies. They have an enabling publicist to do that. And then the sorry, because people love hearing that people they put up on a pedestal are sorry. We come to find out that that sorry was for behavior, but that was just one of many in a long chain of scandals. We've all seen the press conferences where they offer an anemic "I'm sorry," maybe they even fake a few tears, and it doesn't ring true. But we accept it, which is fine. But then we don't get to be surprised when they do it again. Saying sorry ends up as a get-out-of-jail-free card, and everyone accepting those apologies become their enablers. If you grew up in a narcissistic family system, you are used to empty apologies. On the rare day you would get an apology, then in your childlike faith, you would believe they actually get it and wouldn't say something awful again. But that's not what would happen. The family member would apologize, do it again, apologize, do it again. And sadly, if you are in couples therapy and trying to work through a relationship with a narcissist, if your therapist is not wise to narcissism, you may find yourself gaslighted and being told that your narcissist apology in therapy is something that you should accept without question. But as we all know, not everyone has the luxury of leaving a relationship with a narcissist. So what do you do with their pseudo-apology, gaslighting messes that they put in front of you? Number one, see it for what it is. An attempt by the narcissist to just keep life moving forward and giving you an apology that is more about invalidation and gaslighting than about genuine contrition. But most importantly, do not see their apology as a commitment to change, because that can set you up for the exhaustion of disappointment, which just isn't worth it. And an apology also doesn't mean that they get it, especially the twisted sorts of apologies that they offer, like "I'm sorry you feel that way." These apologies can actually leave you feeling worse than you did before you ever got the apology. Now, lots of people ask me, do narcissists apologize? That's the question. That's how this video began. And my answer to them is always not really. Just saying the words "I'm sorry" don't qualify as an apology. You need all of the essential ingredients that make up an apology: awareness, responsibility, and a commitment to change. In the absence of these things, it's just narcissistic window dressing. You just need to keep your eyes open. And keep in mind too, when a narcissist does a bad thing, one of the things that gets triggered for them is shame. And when they have that shame reaction, they get mad, but they also get uncomfortable. Their apology is sometimes a way of pushing that shame feeling away, but it's all about them. And it has nothing to do with what an apology should be about, which is reconciliation and the rebuilding of trust. So next time you get a narcissistic apology, recognize what it really is. Definitely don't view it as a call for change, and you decide whether or not you want to accept it or not. Some of you may even be thinking, oh gosh, I wish somebody had told me that they were a narcissist from the jump. That would have been a useful piece of information. But I've heard from a lot of you who said, you know what? The person who's the narcissist in my life, they actually kind of came right out and told me I'm a narcissist. And it does happen. It actually happens more than you think. And it's happening more and more as there's more and more sort of online content about narcissism, and there's more attention about it, and more people are writing about it and talking about it. Now, when a person tells you this, hey, I'm a narcissist, in some cases, they aren't. But I hate to say it, in many cases, they actually are. And in some ways, and you're going to see when we talk about these 5 ways, there's a little bit of swagger they get from doing this. Going back to this point, though, I'm making that there is more and more being talked about. How do you break up with a narcissist? How do you avoid dating one? You know, recovering from a narcissist. And it makes you wonder if they're kind of getting off on that. So the number one reason that they might tell you they're a narcissist right from the beginning is to play on being hard to get and to play on you trying to win them over. They might think, I'm a narcissist, good luck charming me. And it may really set this precedent of they're sort of someone so kind of psychologically tricky and slippery that it creates this intrigue that early in a relationship, someone might think, oh, really? You think you're a narcissist? I got this. I got this figured out and I can master you. Remember, narcissists love the chase. They love chasing and they love being chased. And it's the being chased part that they actually wish would last forever. They may chase you in the beginning because they like winning, but they do love being chased. The number 2 reason is what I'm going to call posturing and power. It's as though they're laying down a challenge, and it gives them an upper hand from the beginning of the relationship, as though that they think they're all that and that they are attempting to set sort of this dominance hierarchy in this relationship. Listen, I'm the narcissist, so I'm the one who's powerful. I'm the one who is on top of it. And here's the thing, because a person who walks around saying they're a narcissist, they actually don't quite get it clinically. They probably mean that I'm great, I'm in love with myself, I know how great I am. They're not talking about sort of what we talk about, the insecure, lack of empathy, entitled, arrogant, dysregulated kind of hot mess. They really, it's sort of this like, hey, I'm a narcissist, you know, that means I'm kind of the boss and you're going to have to follow me. And I think that some people might be so cowed by that. And especially if the person saying they're a narcissist brings some other value added to the table, they have a lot of money or they're very attractive, they may be able to get away with that. Number 3, arrogance. Now this is similar to the point that I just made, the sort of power one. But it's almost as though they're setting down this challenge like, yes, I am a narcissist, and so what? I have the goods to back me up, so I can be this person. And there's this real sense of arrogance of like, I'm that great. I remember once working with someone years ago and her husband was a surgeon. Like, I'm a great surgeon. Yeah, I'm a narcissist. That's why I'm so good at what I do. Once again, you've got to catch yourself to not fall into that, I'm up for the challenge. Do not fall for the whole Beauty and the Beast nonsense about how, ooh, I'm going to win him over and his surgical narcissism. No. The fact is that at a minimum, forget the fact that he's posturing saying, oh, look, I'm a narcissist. He's owning up to the arrogance and almost like he's better than you or she's better than you because of their job or that they truly believe they have the goods to back it up. They've got the money, they've got the title, they've got the job. The number 4 reason that they might tell you that they're a narcissist in the beginning of the relationship is that they're testing you. And sadly, this might be the way they might draw in an empath into a relationship. But testing you is like, will you stay despite them making that disclosure? Now, a sane person would step away if somebody said that they were a narcissist, but a rescuer or an empath may stick around and fall into the idea of, oh, they have insight, they're admitting it. So maybe I can help them get to the other side and I could try to save them or I can win them over. They know that this is posturing, and in a way, it's an interesting test that they're laying down. Because what in essence they're doing is saying, if I tell them this, then it seems like they really are someone I can tell these sorts of icky things to or uncomfortable things to, and they're going to stick around. And you can see how it might set an interesting precedent. And it might be sort of their little empath test to see, is this person going to put up with my stuff? they lead with being a narcissist and you stick around, yeah, you probably are going to put up with their stuff. So that's one thing they do. It's a bit of a test. Now, number 5, they do it so you'll excuse their behavior. Telling someone you're a narcissist in the beginning of a relationship is almost like issuing a disclaimer. Hey, I told you I'm a narcissist, so you need to deal with my behavior. My behavior isn't going away. It's as though they believe you signed a contract and in essence that you signed off on their BS. And this idea that I told you, it's like at the beginning of a relationship, if someone says to you, hey, I told you I work late a lot. Hey, I told you that I don't like small talk. I told you I don't like family gatherings. So when they open with, hey, I'm a narcissist, and you fall into one of those other traps I just talked about, and you think that you can sort of fix this through your love, or you can rescue them, or, oh, isn't this great? They have insight. And this 5th point I'm making is that you might then back yourself into a corner, and then a few weeks or months or even years down the relationship, they may very well turn around to you and say, what are you getting so worked up about? I told you I was a narcissist. I can't be bothered. I don't care. And because of all those other points I made, the challenge and all that other stuff, you've in essence walked into this thing where now they're forever going to issue this excuse. And the one thing we do know about narcissistic abuse is once you're in this relationship, you start getting confused, feeling upside down, experiencing the self-doubt and all of that. Now, here's the other thing to remember about narcissistic abuse. Somebody telling you that they're a narcissist actually doesn't help it go away or make it better, because you're still enduring the gaslighting, the invalidation, the negating, the lying, whatever it is that their sort of narcissistic game is. Those things are happening. Now, they may be saying, yeah, I'm a narcissist, so this is what I do. But that would almost be like if I was, I don't know, like a boxer and I was punching people. I'm like, I'm a boxer. I punch people. I'd like to think that nobody would ever want to spend time with me again. They'd say, I get it, dude. You're a boxer. Box people in the ring. Stop punching me. And it's a little bit harder to tell the narcissist, I get it, dude. You're a narcissist. Go be narcissistic with other people. That's not how it works. That's what they're going to do. And at least the boxer is a place they can take it. But the narcissist, they're going to be like this in all of their relationships. You may even find that when you step away from the relationship to other, and when I say step away, I mean talk to other people, their family, their friends, their coworkers, they may very well say, yeah, I mean, he's pretty clear that he's a narcissist. And then you may even feel a little foolish, like, yeah, they were telling the truth. They kind of came out at the beginning of the relationship and said, hey, I'm a jerk, and I still bought the car. So people may very well come out and tell this to you. Don't think that it's like, woohoo, maybe I found a self-aware narcissist. Because ultimately, a self-aware narcissist is still a narcissist, and it's still not a healthy relationship. So I hope this kind of gives you some warning bells to look for. If somebody says, hey, I'm a narcissist, the reasons why they might be doing it, but honestly, this video could have been down to one point. If someone tells you that, be very, very careful. If there's someone you have to work with, make sure you document. If there's someone you're forced to spend time with, minimize your engagement. And if there's someone you're going to date, you might want to sort of leave through the back door of the restaurant.
A narcissistic person calls you narcissistic, right? It's mighty rich, isn't it? But have you had that happen? It is, when it happens, you really at first like, who, what, huh? So let's start by breaking down the times that this does happen. So as you begin to heal from one of these relationships, or even take the healing, you just begin to get it. You get closer to radical acceptance. You do the things that show this, that you show that you're radically accepting. Maybe you assert your needs a bit more in the relationship. Not because you think the narcissistic person will meet them, but you recognize that you had given up on them all this time and you feel like you have nothing left to lose. You know what they're about. Or maybe you set a boundary, or you voice an opinion, or you don't take the bait, or you do some gray rocking. But these shifts that basically mean that you are no longer modifying and shaping and existing to suit them and their needs and wants. and you aren't chasing your tail all the time, trying to be what they want, well, needless to say, when you start doing that, they don't like it. So you doing something very basic and healthy that may not be what they want to do, or it takes time away from them, or doesn't suit them, they're going to consider that narcissistic. They can watch this channel too, folks. In essence, you not doing what they want is you being narcissistic. They just don't get what narcissism is. You also may have called them out as narcissistic in the relationship, even though I've told you time and again that you do not ever want to call a narcissistic person out. That said, if you did, trust me, they're going to go look into what narcissism is if they don't know what it is. Now, the average person out there thinks of narcissism as either being like someone who loves to look in the mirror or being selfish. They don't understand all the abusive nuances of gaslighting, manipulation, narcissistic supply, the masks, and all the stuff that lifts this out of just being, again, a person who's looking in the mirror and doing whatever they want, to really, these are people who create relationships that are manipulative messes. So as a result, either the average person thinks narcissism is selfish, or they watch a video and shapes a narrative around the idea that you were not being empathic one day just because you didn't agree with them on something, right? Or that you were entitled because you wanted them to empty the dishwasher. But because a narcissistic relationship is a blame-shifting matrix, they are just going to turn it around on you. This is part of why I tell you to never call them out, because it's just going to take the mess and make it messier. But if you do call them out, inevitably they're going to start using that term against you. And then there is the issue of projection. And remember, projection happens at an unconscious level. A person doesn't choose to project. Projection is an unconscious defense that involves displacing the uncomfortable, acceptable part of oneself on another person. In the case of a narcissist, they do this so they can maintain their grandiose sense of perfection. And one could argue that at some level, if they are engaging in projection, their unconscious knows that their selfishness or their betrayal or entitlement or whatever it is shameful. But this is happening at a level of feeling. And they don't like that feeling, so they project it. They onto you, and you become the narcissist in the story. There is no point in ever pointing out the projection because it is happening at such an unprocessed, unconscious level. And then they're just going to tell you that you're a psychobabbling fool. And projection is also a reminder of how icky the psychological insides of a narcissistic person are. They aren't psychopathic. It isn't as though narcissistic people have no conscience, no remorse. They know what bad behavior is. But their impulsivity, their entitlement, their me, grandiosity, all means that they will still do bad things. And then when they feel really internally icky, and especially if they know it's a bad look, they're going to project all of that onto you. Them calling you narcissistic is often part of the larger picture of gaslighting. They will call you narcissistic as a way to leave you questioning yourself. And folks, it works. I can't tell you how many people I have worked with over the years who would tell me, ugh, I was so confused in this relationship and always being doubted and told things weren't happening or that I had said things I didn't, that my reality got so morphed that when they started telling me that I was the narcissist, that it ballooned into me wondering if I was the problem. Because that's the issue in these relationships, the self-blame, and many people wondering around if it's them. It's not you. If the gaslighting is bad or chronic enough, you may doubt yourself. And if they hit you with the idea that you're narcissistic, you'll believe it. You know the laundry list. You know what comprises narcissism. The empathy deficits, the entitlement, the grandiosity, the validation seeking, the arrogance, the egocentricity, the need for control, the impulsivity, the poorly regulated anger. You gotta have all that stuff to qualify. Listen, here's the thing. Posting on Instagram doesn't make you a narcissist. Giving yourself an hour a day to go to the gym doesn't make you a narcissist. Being exhausted after a long day working or caregiving and not feeling up to hearing about a friend's problems does not make you a narcissist. But if they grab onto those things you do and they play on that, oh, look at you having to post that picture of you at work that you edited on Instagram. Who's the narcissist? Don't fall for it. Know thyself. Know your empathy. Know all that other stuff about yourself. Don't push back on them, but hold it within you that you know it's not true. Ultimately, the narcissistic person calls you and other people narcissistic with little conscious or communicated awareness that it's them. So this way they can control the narrative, maintain a grandiose and perfect vision of themselves, dominate other people. That is always their end game. And they know it's not a good thing. Now, this begs the question, are there people out there who are self-aware narcissistic folks? Absolutely, yes. They are the I don't give an F what you think about me narcissists. And in some tiny number of cases, there are also those unicorns out there who are aware it's them and recognize it may be time to change. And I promise you we'll break all that down in another video. So when they call you narcissistic, I'm hoping that long before they do that you take the time to do the deep dive into you. I don't even mean to like make yourself better, just to know yourself. If you know that you have solid empathy, that you aren't entitled, that you are respectful, and that you have other healthy, long-term, sustained friendships, healthy ones, and can get through the day without 100 people having to tell you that you're great or hot or the best, or that you don't need to manipulate other people to get your needs met, then yeah, it's not you. And don't let them gaslight you into believing otherwise. And It's Not You is the title of my new book that I please hope that you can go hit that link and pre-order, because it really breaks all of these themes down in a very concise way, because it's really not. This idea of narcissistic people calling out narcissists, I actually had this happen. I had this happen about a month or two before. And I have no doubt that some people who see this channel, Dr. RAMANI's a narcissist, sure, fine. I wish we could break bread, you could learn otherwise, but you're going to hold your opinion of me, and I'm not going to tell your opinion's not true. That would be gaslighting you. But I had this person do this, and they were doing it, though. In my case, it's unique, right? Because I talk about it in these online spaces. And so they were kind of getting this glee out of poking me and saying like, oh, how interesting. I guess somebody who talks about a narcissist and it has to be on YouTube and it has to be on Instagram. Well, isn't that ironic? Doesn't that make you the narcissist? They were trying to play philosopher with me. I really wasn't in the mood for it that day. And I was kind of being a little bit, like sort of relenting. I'm like, yeah, I guess it does, but whatever keeps the lights on. I wasn't giving the person the reaction they want. And then because I wasn't yielding, they're like, oh, I guess, yes, of course, you don't get mad, right? Ramani, you're above us all, aren't you? And I'm like, yeah, I guess the air is really thin up here. This person was getting more and more aggravated. They wanted to see me get upset. And so in this case, I knew if I got upset, they'd actually stop and I had to get on with my day. So I did. I got upset. I'm like, how could you think this? I worked so hard on this. It's not fair. I can't believe, I was really good. And they're like, oh God, all right, you just keep doing you. But you know what? I was then able to go and pick up my mail and get some other stuff done. So I was able to get my stuff done. So it's all tactical, right? You got to figure it out. But I have to tell you, as I got in my car, went and drove and did my errands, it stung, it hurt my heart that this person, whatever their whole vibe and groove was, that they had to sting me to get through their day. Yeah, sure, I could have that conversation with myself. Well, I feel sorry for them, that they need someone else to feel bad. Not my issue. I felt bad. So when they call you a narcissist, I can tell you all of this, but ultimately there's a minute there. It's almost like after someone slaps you across the face. no matter how much you can understand what the damaged psychology is of somebody who do that, you could catch yourself and say that, but in the moment you're slapped, it stings. So they can keep saying it. It could be all these sort of dynamics, but it hurts. Just don't take the bait unless you need to do it so you can run your errands. Thanks again.